Well, hello there, people that are and hello again. I'm TheMBmulti. Welcome to part 20 of My Doki Doki SNAFU. In the previous episodes... Oh yeah, I went to Yuri's house to work on the book report and we found some very interesting books from Yuri. And today we are doing something else. Even though Sundays are considered a day of rest by many people, I have no intention of sitting around doing nothing for the next 12 hours. Let's see, now that I'm finished with breakfast... Well, let's contact Yuri. A strong sense of discomfort fills me as I see the hollow place lying on the kitchen table. Yuri's self-harm and look of guilt has been relentlessly plaguing my mind ever since visiting her house. This is all because I have been too hesitant to press for any real change. Even if my advice does not end up making her situation worse, with the way things are now, her sad smile flashes in front of me once more. Damn it. I pull out my phone and begin dialing her number. Better this than nothing at all. Let's just hope that she's still willing to accept my help. After a few rings... Hello? Hey Yuri, it's Mark. Are you busy right now? Huh? Is something the matter? You could say that. I know this is sudden, but is there any way you could come over? I'll go ask for permission. Excuse me for one moment. There's a period of silence following by the sound of her phone being put down. Footsteps can be heard growing closer after about 5 minutes. There don't appear to be any pressing matters needing my attention today. I shouldn't have any issues visiting your house once I've gotten ready. Great, I'll be waiting. Wait, Mark? Is everything alright? You sound different. Don't worry about me. I'm just a little anxious. Anxious? See you soon, Yuri. Right. The tightness in my chest grows stronger as the call ends. Guess I should go ahead and prepare what I can. There's a knock on the front door nearly 45 minutes later. Sorry for taking so long. I do hope you weren't left waiting. You've got nothing to apologize for. I was the one who called out of nowhere, remember? She stands in the entrance looking me over a few times, likely searching for the cause of my sudden behavioral shift. Here, come in. There's freshly prepared tea in the kitchen if you'd like some. Oh, thank you. Then, if you'll pardon my intrusion. She slips off her shoes before following me into the next room. You've mentioned being fond of the flavor several times in the past, so I went with an oolong blend for this pot. That said, I doubt it will be anywhere near the same level as yours. Thank you for your consideration. I'm sure it tastes delicious. We sip our drinks for a moment before she eventually faces me with a more serious expression. Forgive my saying so, but you sounded rather troubled over the phone. Has something bad happened? Your arms. Pardon? There's been a tension in my chest ever since we worked on the project together. The thought of you feeling guilty or distressed due to my own incompetence has kept me from being able to sleep at night as well. I can't remember ever feeling this way towards someone else before, but it's become clear that something has to be done. The idea of you hurting yourself and me being totally unable to do anything, it hits a little too close to home. Sorry, I had no idea I was causing you so much grief. This isn't your fault, alright? I'm the one who asked to help you. Any repercussions I feel are entirely my responsibility, understand? Then the reason you called today? Yeah, I'm done with taking a passive approach. How do you mean? Up until now, all I've done is offer my ear to any problems you may want to voice. But today, I plan on doing everything in my power to actively support you. Assuming you still wish for me to help, that is. That is. Triple dots. She tucks at her sleeve. I want to stop. I know doing this will only continue hurting the people around me, so if it's not too much of a burden, I'd very much appreciate the help. You help? Your help. That's all I needed to hear. Here, follow me. Bring your cup if you want. Where are we going? My room. Take a seat wherever you like. Yuri hesitantly begins to look around after following me in. Not much has changed since last time. Well, interior decorating isn't really my thing. Given the few seating options available, she eventually ends up sat on the corner of the bed, stiff as a log. I rolled the chair from my desk near her before also taking a seat. There's no reason to be so tense, I don't mind you sitting there. Are you sure? I'd hate to wrinkle the sheets after you went through the trouble of making the bed. It's fine, honestly. This will only work if you're comfortable, so feel free to stretch out a bit. I see. Then, if you don't mind. She takes a moment to reposition herself, relaxing her shoulders and moving closer to the center of the bed. Better? How do you feel right now, in general? Well, I'll admit I'm a bit nervous. I'm not really sure what to expect. That's understandable. Can I see your hand for a moment? My hand? You mean like this? Once she's lifted it towards me, I grab hold of her hand with my own. Mark, is this part of the plan? Not exactly, just thought doing this might make you feel a little more secure. Was I right? That's... The shade of red on her face grows deeper. It's embarrassing, but I also feel safer now. So you're okay with us talking like this? Good, because what I'm about to ask next may be hard for you to talk about. Are you ready? She stays quiet for several seconds before responding with a light nod. Why do you cut yourself, Yuri? Perhaps expecting to hear this, she stares at the floor with a sad smile. I know it's a loaded question, so feel free to take your time answering. The silence surrounds us for what seems like an eternity before finally being broken by her weak voice. I learned about the application of self-harm through reading. The main character of a novel I enjoyed would use cutting as a coping mechanism for past trauma. At first, it was more of a shock than something I'd ever think to pursue. The depictions alone were so intense that the mere thought of performing was enough to make me nauseous. However, the idea became increasingly more appealing as I continued to read. The character would often have episodes where their head was flooded with thoughts and felt like they had no control over their life. But when cutting, that all changed. They experienced clarity and a rush that enabled them to move forward free of doubt and fear. She goes quiet for a moment. When was this? Not long after I first entered high school. At the time, there were several things that worried me, and not a day went by where I didn't feel anxious. Before meeting you and Natsuki, I'd always eat lunch alone, and my time in the classroom wasn't much different. To me, novels were a retreat from the real world, one that allowed me to feel so many things. Warmth, security, friendship, romance, love. Whenever I read, the world was a bright and vivid place full of interesting and amazing people. But outside of my books, the grip on my hand tightens as a shadow falls over her face. The idea of me being able to feel control over my life was too tempting to ignore. My father kept a beautifully engraved knife that always managed to catch my eye in passing. One day when my parents were gone, I gave in to the urges and took it from his study. You can imagine what happened next. Her grip, right? I'm only holding one hand, right? Her grip grows even tighter. Oh well, whatever. I guess I'm holding both her hands now. After another few seconds of silence, I release her hand. Thank you for sharing that with me, Yuri. I know it wasn't easy. You mentioned cutting because of the stress you were facing at the time, and how your social life was giving you feelings of anxiety. Do you still feel that way? Occasionally, when I'm alone for a long period of time. But joining the club helped. Having a place where I could blend in and meeting people who I could share my interest with helped easing those feelings? Helped ease those feelings. Did that reduce how often you cut? I think so. This time last semester I was doing it nearly every day. Now, however, I only get the urge a few times a week. Though I also sometimes find myself doing it even when not experiencing negative emotions. Those are different. They aren't to ease my anxiety, but rather... Security? Something that feels safe because it's familiar? She nods her head. Now this is weighing on you, so I'll only ask one more question. Did confiding in me the day I pulled your sleeve help at all? Huh? Of course it did, that's... Yuri, don't answer instinctively. Just be honest. I think so. I'm not sure if it reduced how often I get the urge, but knowing you knew and how you cared about me, that definitely helped. I see. She watches with crimson cheeks as I stand to grab the first aid kit off the top of my shelf. When was the last time you changed the bandages? Last night. I would have done so before coming over, but ended up not having time. Sorry, that's entirely my fault. Here, can you roll up your sleeves for me? Is this okay? Perfect. You seem to have gotten better at wrapping them yourself. Yes, it can still be a little awkward, but I've been able to manage thus far. A few tugs at the slightly shabby wrappings is enough to leave the wounds completely exposed. As I'm beginning to look them over, I notice Yuri's breathing becoming more and more ragged. Does it hurt? No, not at all. It's just... when you look at them like that... Sorry, it's a strange feeling. Right. I'll try being more careful. Returning my attention to her arms, my focus soon lands on the newer wounds. When's the last time you cut? 2 days ago, I believe. Sorry. There's no need to apologize. I told you I'd share responsibility, right? She flinches slightly as I rub the alcohol wipe against her arm, but she seems largely used to the sensation. You really don't have to trouble yourself with this. I know it's unpleasant, so I wouldn't mind doing... Don't get the wrong idea. Part of the reason I'm doing this is to make myself feel better, remember? That's... oh! Sorry, I left the most recent cut for last. After using some wet wipes and towelettes, Yuri's arms are now fully prepared to be rewrapped. She stares solemnly at the streaks of red as I unroll the bandages. Not used to it yet? Huh? Oh, I've become quite familiar with the sight of scars and wounds healing. So I don't believe that to be the cause of my unease. Rather, thinking about how there is someone else seeing them. About how they didn't hate me for it, how they instead felt concerned. The blushing doesn't do much to hide the bittersweet expression on her face. Tell me, do you regret agreeing to my help? Not at all. I really am grateful for everything you've done. But she doesn't respond for several seconds. If I could start over again, I wouldn't have wanted this being discovered. It was truly terrifying when you pulled my sleeve up. I thought for sure that would be the last time we ever saw each other. But I'm really happy I was wrong. Sorry again for doing something so reckless. I would have preferred being subtle, but I ended up not being able to stop myself once the thought had entered my mind. You mentioned you had experience, right? She takes a deep breath as I finish applying the bandages. Mark, there's something I want to know. I'm sorry, but I feel like it's important. And what would that be? You mentioned having experience dealing with self-harm. I know this may be insensitive, but I want to learn more about you. You've seen me in a state like this, but when it comes to you, I feel like I don't know anything. She hangs her head and looks at the floor dejectedly. Considering how close the two of us have become, something like this was bound to come up eventually. But still, she's asking for information I've kept to myself for the better part of 6 years. So why am I so tempted to tell her? Why does seeing her look disheartened make my chest tight? Before I say anything, there's a question I'd like to ask as well. If you answer honestly, I'll do the same. Very well. Then here goes. How do you feel about me, Yuri? Why bring that up all of a sudden? Like you said, I think it's important. Well, I enjoy our time together, and we do share an interest in literature. Plus, you're a junior member of my club, so I think we should always try our best to get along. That's not what I'm asking. This isn't about our time together, the books we read, or the club. How do you feel about me? Well, This reaction should have been expected. I've known Yuri long enough to know that a direct approach is the worst way to handle her. If you're having trouble, let me try rephrasing the question. Yuri, how would you feel if I said I was in love with you? The gears in her head grind to a total halt. Love? She fidgets restlessly for a moment before lowering her head and responding with a hushed voice. I would be really happy. Taking this as a confirmation of her feelings, I stand up and take a seat on the bed next to her. Mark, what do you... You want to know about my experience, right? Still willing to hear me out? Of course. Thanks, though I'm not exactly sure where to start. Suppose the first thing would be to tell you that I have, or rather had, a sister. Had? She flinches a bit as upon realizing the implications of this. I had no idea. Don't apologize, it wasn't your fault. To put things lightly, my sister was a lot of things. Smart, beautiful, athletic, sociable, the list goes on. She was a spitting image of the word prodigy. There was nothing she couldn't master if she put her mind to it. You would never think this based on her appearance, but there were also a lot of things that troubled her. She was self-conscious, anxious, and more than anything lonely. But she did a good job of hiding all of this. Even though I knew her better than anyone, she still had me convinced that she was the closest thing a person can get to being perfect. Admittedly, I was a dumb brat back in those days, but that blissful ignorance ended pretty abruptly one day. I do actually like how the sprite of the sister becomes more and more detailed as the story goes on or whatever. It's actually kind of nicely done. At first it was just completely dark, and then in the previous one where we learned about that she also did self-harm and that she also knew something about the what's it called, the oils diffuser and things. Then there was a little bit more detail, and now there's even more detail, except of course there's no face, but that's actually pretty nicely done. It's like the memory gets or MC or whatever, is reliving the memory more and more. You may be too young to understand, but I'll try explaining everything. Just please don't cry. Oh, Haruna. Did we always know that her name was Haruna? Haruna rests her hand on my head in an attempt to calm me down. Why do you do it? That's kind of a hard question, but if I had to give a reason... Well, I feel sad sometimes, you know? There are days where my head is so full of noise that I feel like collapsing. Cutting myself helps make the noise and sadness go away. But why? Why are you sad? Is it my fault? I'm sorry if... Ow! Hey, I don't show... Oh, I know I don't show it, but even I can get mad, Mark. Don't ever think any of this is your fault, okay? You're my precious little brother. I care about you more than anything else in this world. And I've never once felt sad. Oh, I've never once felt sad with you around. Understand? I nod weakly. It's just, with the position I'm in, it's hard not to feel overwhelmed from time to time. Why don't you quit? Just tell Mom and Dad that. She shakes her head. At this point, quitting is probably a little more than wishful thinking. There are a lot of people who have high expectations for our family. I don't blame our parents for wanting me to push myself. Even if you don't like it? Sadly, liking it doesn't really matter to adults. There are some things you just have to do, whether you enjoy them or not. But you're not an adult, you're still in high school. I know, and maybe one day I will decide to quit. To live an average life without worrying what other people think about me. But for right now, as long as I'm in this house, I don't have much of a choice. Hearing her say this makes it hard to not start crying again. Is there anything I can do to help? She once again places her hand on my head. Just knowing I have a little brother who looks up to his sister with a personality as warped as mine is good enough. But I want to help for real. I don't want to see you hurt like this. Alright. She looks at me with a weak smile before wiping over her eyes. It's really hard to keep up the big sister act when you start being all sweet like this. But that's fine, I understand. Do you still have the first aid kit I gave you? Yes. Jumping up from the bed, I run over to the closet and quickly pull out the small red and white container. She shakes her head when I try handing it to her. You want to help, don't you? Why don't you try treating the cuts? Me? But I'm not a doctor. Surprising as this may sound, neither am I. Aruna, sorry, moods like these aren't really my thing. Here, I'll walk you through it. She flips open the kit and pulls out a handful of alcohol wipes. Now all you have to do is wipe this along the red lines, okay? Easy peasy. You're saying this does little to ease the trembling in my arms. Are you scared? Mm-hmm. Don't worry so much. I'm a lot tougher than you may think. It's gonna take a whole lot more than a little alcohol to bring me down. Still nervous, I gently brush on the one of the wipes against her arm. Does it hurt? There's a little sting, but that just means it's working. You can keep going. Right. Every muscle in my body feels tight as the blood is slowly washed from her forearm. Would you hate me if I didn't stop? Huh? If I didn't stop cutting myself, would you hate your older sister? Oh wow, we don't get to see the reaction to that. After that, Haruna would occasionally ask me to treat her injuries. Looking back, it's pretty obvious she only did that to make me feel better. Staying considerate right up until the end. Honestly, how perfect can a person be? An intense pain strikes my chest as I lower my head. Your sister, did she... She was killed in a car accident. It was completely unrelated to the self-harm. I see. Several seconds of heavy silence follow this. Listen, I didn't tell you this to get sympathy, so whatever you might be thinking... Whoa! I'm cut off as... Shouldn't off be with two Fs? Oh well, whatever, I don't know that one for sure. I'm cut off as Yuri leans forward and embraces me. While this may normally be a pleasant situation, the sheer awkwardness of having her grab me from the side outweighs anything else. Not only that, but her eyes are tightly closed, as though she's expecting me to throw her off any second. I'm sorry. Huh? You look so sorrowful, but I didn't know what to do. The word no isn't even here. I didn't know what to do is what you mean. I thought maybe this would help, so I'm sorry for grabbing onto you without permission. Well, you really don't have... Completely unwilling to listen, she shakes her head before tightening her grip even more. This, in turn, causes my positioning to feel even more unusual. Hugging me and then apologizing for it? This girl really is something else. Honestly. Seeing her eyes still clenched shut, I try and alleviate Yuri's troubles by doing my best in return to return the embrace. Thank you. The pain in my chest slowly eases away as we stay locked together. After what feels like a reasonable amount of time, I begin pulling back, only to be met with resistance. I'm fine now, Yuri. You can let go. Is she even listening? And what's with that face? Was she really expecting me to fight her off the second she started? Honestly, this girl's got a long way to go as far as situations like this are concerned. Still being so close together with her eyes shut like this. The thought of leaning in and kissing her crossed my mind, but that wouldn't be right. Not until I've done something to truly help her. Thanks, Yuri, but you really can let go now. I don't plan on running away. Snapping out of her trance, she seemed to realize just how strongly she's gripping me. Sorry. I'm not sure how to handle situations like this, so I panicked. I hope you can forgive me. She repeatedly bows her head while apologizing. It's okay, really. Although there are many guys out there who would be upset about receiving a hug from you, having been released from That's a bit of a weird line to say. I would say, like, I needed that or something. That's what I would say. Like, it's okay, thank you. I actually really needed that or something. That's what I would say, but okay. Having been released from her hold, I make my way to the box of supplies sitting near my desk. Today is about you, remember, not me. So let's focus on one problem at a time for now. Would you mind taking a seat in the floor? Yeah, this mod maker really likes clipping through floors. Would you like to take a seat in the floor for a moment? I give her time to get settled before setting the box down between us. Are these art supplies? Some of them, yeah. There are several alternatives people use to reduce how often they self-harm. One of which involves this. I hand her the red marker lying on top of the pile. You want me to write something? Not exactly. Here. I lay a sheet of paper flat against the floor in front of her. Do you have any hobbies that involve art, like drawing or painting? Well, I'm not sure if they would qualify as hobbies, but I occasionally draw sketches in my notebook at school. My mother's also an avid painter, so there have been times where she's asked for my help with her pieces. Have you ever noticed a change in mood or the desire to cut while doing them? I'm not really sure. I've never thought to connect the two. Though painting with my mother makes me quite happy, I doubt I'd ever felt the urge while doing so. I see. Well, do you mind using that marker to draw something? Right now? Yeah. It doesn't have to be a Picasso piece or anything, you can even scribble if you want. Just try putting something on the paper. Don't keep your pen in one spot for too long, because they create one big puddle of ink. That's Monika's writing tip of the day, thanks for listening. She stares blankly at me for a moment. What? She stares blankly for a moment, begin finally uncapping the marker. What the fuck? She stares blankly for a moment before finally beginning to uncap the marker and beginning to doodle. I think that's roughly what it means. Holy fuck. Like at first, like there was a lot of sentences, like pretty complex sentences that were fine, but like the deeper into the mod we go, the more spelling mistakes we see. Or just entire words missing, or sentences not even making any sense at all. 2 minutes pass before she finishes, leaving behind what can only be called surprising. A chibi cat? Natsuki showed me how they were drawn last time she came over, and it was the only thing I could think of. Is it too childish? Well, what you drew isn't really the important part. But I think this is cute. So, how did you feel while drawing? Mostly embarrassed if I'm being honest. Then you didn't feel any connection between using the marker and cutting? She shakes her head. Sorry. No need to apologize, I didn't expect things to work perfectly right off the bat. While Yuri is recapping the marker, I pull a few rubber bands out of the box. Here, could you slide one of these over your arm? Sure. Like this? A little more towards your elbow, near where you normally cut. Oh, I see. She pulls the band to the middle of her forearm before looking at me expectantly. Now try popping it. Huh? Pull the band away from your skin, then let it go. Try to avoid hitting any of the newer wounds though, they might reopen otherwise. If you think it may help, then... Ah! How did it feel? She rubs over the impact spot while thinking. It hurt. Yeah, that much was to be expected. I meant, were you reminded of cutting at all? Was the sensation familiar in any way? Do you mind if I do it again? Feel free. This is for you after all. Right. She takes a deep breath before once again popping herself. That sounds weird. Gross. Gross. It's difficult to tell exactly, but I believe the feeling may be similar. That's good. Small results are still better than no results after all. I agree. Do you mind if I keep a few? Of course. They were bought for you to begin with. Thank you. She slides the rubber band back down towards her wrist while looking through the rest of the supplies. Was there anything else you wanted to try? Yeah, but the one I'm most interested in may have to wait. What's that? I point to a red marker lying beside her. My original idea was to have you use that to mark on yourself instead of a piece of paper. Doing so can apparently stimulate the feeling of you get from self-harm, but in a much safer way, obviously. Only problem is, it might be dangerous to try with the way your arms are now. Many of those wounds are still healing, and getting ink in them would likely cause more harm than good. Sorry. What did I say about apologizing? Oh, right. So, I mean... it's fine. No need to get worked up. Are you sure we shouldn't still try it? Even with all the lacerations, there should still be enough room to make some markings. Well, you may be right. It would be difficult to tell if using the marker has only an effect unless you're able to make a cut the same size as the others. Simply dotting on your arm likely won't produce the feeling we're trying to recreate. She thinks over the situation for about a minute before returning her attention to me. So I only need to make marks that would resemble the feeling of self-harm, right? Yeah, but with the way your arms are now, may I ask you to turn around? Huh? I have an idea, but I won't be able to verify it if you're looking at me. Right. Anything you think may help? Still unsure of what's going on, I turned to face the wall behind me. This is soon followed by the sound of shuffling, fabric being pulled, and a marker being uncapped. I'm assuming you thought of another area where you could test? That's correct. Mind if I ask where? It's obviously somewhere she doesn't want me looking, but with a girl like Yuri, that could be anywhere. The character who exposed me to self-harm actually cut somewhere besides their arms, a place that would be much less noticeable. Have you cut there before as well? Only once. The pain was much worse than my arms, so I never thought to repeat it. And that spot is? It's my thighs. Question mark, question mark, question mark? Her thighs? Does that mean the sound of her shuffling around earlier? Yuri purring down her leggings? The idea that Yuri is a meter behind me with her pants down sends many thoughts through my head. Many thoughts. None of which are good, yeah. Right, of course. I read there was another spot that many people used, especially those who were afraid of their habit would be discovered. Sorry I hadn't thought to ask you about it before. It's fine, really. There's a panic in her voice and she's obviously embarrassed. That aside, how is using the marker? Does it help at all? The feeling does seem similar, but like with the rubber bands, it's difficult to tell exactly. Another potential candidate, I'm glad. That one would certainly be less painful than having to pop yourself. That's still gross. Though it might stain your clothes if you're not careful. Having just now thought of this, she begins to panic. This may be a problem. I hadn't considered the possibility of the ink smearing. Would a wipe from the first aid kit be enough to clean it all off? I'm afraid not. Sorry for being so careless. No worries. Careful not to look in her direction and stand up before heading towards the door. Seeing as how you're currently in a predicament, I'll go grab a towel from the bathroom. I'd very much appreciate that. After retrieving both a wet rag and a dry towel, I approached my bedroom to find the door was being understandably closed. I've got them, Yuri. An arm emerges from the crack in the door. Thank you. It's no problem. Handing off the towels, the door is closed once more. Shut out of my own room so that the girl can wipe down her thighs, huh? Today's been a weird day. I ponder these useless thoughts until her voice fills the hallway. You may come in. Yuri is once again seated in the floor, with the two towels folded neatly beside her. I apologize for being so troublesome, especially after you've done so much to help me. Don't worry so much. Today's been a learning experience for the both of us. Was there anything else you wish to try? We tested most of the main ones. All I had left was a few. Retaking my seat on the floor, I noticed something different about Yuri. Is something the matter, Mark? Did you wipe your cheek while cleaning off the marker by any chance? My cheek? Sure enough, she has a light red blotch on the left side of her face. You've just got a bit of ink on you, that's all. Here. Ah, there it is. There it is. She recoils slightly as the damp rag is gently pressed against her. Sorry, perhaps I should have given you more of a warning. It's fine, I was just a little surprised. Her eyes grow increasingly less focused as I continue wiping her cheek. You didn't get much on you, so this should just about do it. She grabs hold of my wrist as I begin retracting my hand. Sorry, but could you hold it for just a while longer? The warmth is nice. Sure, no problem. The look on her face causes my feelings from earlier to begin stirring within me. My head grows foggy as the distance between us slowly decreases until our faces are only a few centimeters apart. It soon becomes clear that my will to hold back won't be strong enough this time around. Sorry, Yuri, I should have done this earlier. Huh? What do you... Leaning in, I press my lips against her. Oh! Seemingly frozen by the sudden kiss, Yuri's lips stay locked with mine for several seconds. The look on her face as I pull away can best be described as bewildered. Mark, did we... Her face is practically burning as she struggles to form a coherent sentence. Yuri, I think I'm in love with you. Sorry for dropping this on you so suddenly, but when I was telling you about my sister, it became obvious that my feelings for you were much stronger than just a friend. She stares shocked for a moment. However, after taking a deep breath... Breathe? Breath is without the E. With an E is breathe, right? After taking a deep breath and furrowing her brow, she looks at me with determination. Me too! I love you too! I've been wanting to express myself more, but I was scared you wouldn't like me if I behaved in such a way. But after hearing you say that, I wanted you to know. She tucks her hands tightly against her chest while exclaiming this. I felt this way for a while now. Sorry for not saying anything sooner. So the feeling's mutual then. That's a relief. This is my first time confessing to anyone, so I'm glad it went well. I grin at Yuri while taking her hand in mine. That said, the whole romance and dating thing is a complete mystery to me, so I do hope you're prepared to be frustrated on a regular basis. That's quite alright. Outside of books, I'm quite unfamiliar with those feelings as well. Those things as well. So we're stumbling around in the dark together, huh? Guess it could be worse. So long as it's with you, I won't be afraid. Aww. No, you say aww? I don't know. Maybe you find that a bit awkward if I said that. Natsuki would find it awkward for sure. If this was Natsuki, and we just confessed love to each other and I said, aww, like, I'm not cute! That would 100% be her reaction. Well, I'm not sure if I'll be able to meet your expectations, but I suppose it's too late to start slacking off now. Though, if you intend to start expressing yourself more, I hope you'll be willing to reprimand me when necessary. That may still be difficult for me, but I'll try my best. Glad to hear it. Does that mean you wouldn't dislike me if I became more expressive? I know I have a tendency to ramble, and the things I say may not always be very interesting. She stops as my two fingers make contact with her forehead. I love you, remember? As such, you get the benefit of being the sole person who can be as expressive and demanding as they please with no repercussions whatsoever. Pretty good deal, huh? You mean it? You really wouldn't mind? Of course. Just be yourself around me. I couldn't ask for more. Her face lights up. In that case, I'd like to make a request. Shoot. Again, I'd like to kiss. Her voice grows quiet. Her voice grows quiet as her eyes drift away from me. Yeah, I suppose that's within my capabilities. She shuts her eyes as I once again close the distance between us. Are you ready? Ah, how adorable. We spent several minutes enjoying each other's company before eventually returning to the front hall. She was rather adamant about keeping my red marker, so she's now carrying it as well as a few rubber bands. Is it safe to assume the two of us are now a couple? Yeah, I doubt we could be described as much else. I see. That makes me very happy. I'm not sure what I'll be able to offer, but I do hope to make you feel the same way. Now, you've already made quite a bit of progress in that department, though I wouldn't mind being spoiled every now and then. Perhaps that's part of my duty as your senior club member as well. Speaking of which, what shall we tell the others? Oh, that's a good question. For now, let's wait and see if any good opportunities present themselves. Telling them out of the blue would likely cause a sizable commotion. I agree. Waiting until they are prepared would be the easiest. Guess we'll just have to stick to being lovey-dovey in private, huh? Well, everything in moderation. Do you perhaps think of lewd things after all, Mark? Of course! It would be a disservice not to be... It would be a disservice not to with a girlfriend like you. Girlfriends? Please don't say such things out loud. You're better off getting used to it. I intend to go all out on teasing you now that we're a couple. Holding back all this time hasn't been easy, you know? Perhaps I should have taken Sayori's warnings more seriously. Little late in the game to be having doubts like that. You're pretty well stuck with me for the time being. So it would seem. And I couldn't be happier. Aww. Stop it, Yuri. Jump to the final club meeting. Alright, well, I'll save it over there. And then I'll end off the episode here. Alright, so final club meeting. So is that the ending then? So if I can like continue... Do we really want that? I guess it's like with that spring semester or whatever. Or no, what was it? Like the... Oh, but before the midterms thing where you could skip to beyond midterms. I guess we're gonna go with no. Because I want more like interactions with Yuri or something. I don't know. Like, will there be more, or will it just be like a few generic ones that we can do over and over again or something? But I guess, you know, like final club meeting is the ending, and you can get the good ending or the bad ending or whatever. Although I do think that there were like endings where you could be friends with people or not, or whatever, you know. Like you could be like, you could have like a bad ending with Yuri, a good ending with Yuri where you're friends, or a good ending with Yuri where you're like in love with each other. I guess. I don't know for sure. It's been ages since I looked this up on the Doki Doki SNAFU, but yeah, okay, yeah, we're approaching the end. Well, definitely interested to see what's going to happen next, but I'm also definitely interested to see what happens when after we're done with the Yuri ride, because it's pretty obvious that we're on the Yuri ride right now. What happens with Sayori's and Monika's route? I'm actually interested. And alright, fine, we'll also do Natsuki's. And if I really feel like it, we'll go for Rika, but I feel so... She's just like, you know, what? No. You know, like it's just a character that was made in this mod, so, you know, it makes sense that I don't really care so much about her, that I prefer to spend my time in the literature club rather than the track team club, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, I hope you Romans enjoyed the video. Click the like button if you did, subscribe to join the Roman army, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later, Romans. Walete.